Endovascular aneurysm repair, you might know it as EVR, is a really incredible, modern way to treat a pretty dangerous condition. But here's the thing, it's not for everyone. The decision to go ahead with it involves this super careful evaluation, almost like a doctor's checklist, to see who is the right candidate. So let's dive right into what's on this crucial medical checklist.
You know, for thousands of people, that's not just a hypothetical question. It's the reality of living with an abdominal aortic aneurysm, or AAA for short. It's basically this bulge in the body's biggest artery that often grows without a single symptom, a hidden threat just waiting in the background.
So what exactly is it? Okay, think of your aorta as the main superhighway for blood flowing from your heart. And AAA is like this dangerous weak spot in the wall of that highway, causing it to bulge outwards under the constant pressure of your blood flow.
All right, now that we have a handle on what it is, let's get to the real heart of the matter. Why is this silent bulge so unbelievably dangerous?
The answer really boils down to one word: rupture. If that weakened wall gives way, it causes massive internal bleeding, which is, and I mean this, a catastrophic medical emergency. This is the single event that doctors are trying to prevent. So when we talk about this repair, the stakes just couldn't be any higher.
Now, it's really important to get this. Not all aneurysms are created equal. You have what's called a fusiform aneurysm. It's this symmetrical, kind of spindle-like bulge, and it's generally less likely to rupture. But then you have a saccular one, which looks more like a lopsided berry. That shape concentrates all the stress on one point, making it way more dangerous, even when it's smaller.
Okay, so that brings us to the very first part of our checklist. Before a doctor can even think about fixing the aneurysm, they have to run a full diagnostic on the patient. Honestly, you can think of it like a pre-flight check for an airplane. Is the patient physiologically strong enough for the journey of surgery?
So, the evaluation really zeroes in on the major systems that the surgery is going to put under stress. How's the heart? What about the lungs? And the kidneys? These are the big three. And of course, the patient's age is also a really critical factor in the overall risk assessment.
The heart check is actually a great example of this whole process. First, doctors screen for any immediate red flags, like a recent heart attack. If that's all clear, they move to a surprisingly simple but really effective test. Can you climb 2 flights of stairs without any issues? If there are still concerns after that, that's when they bring in the more advanced tests.
Now, this number highlights a really surprising connection inside our bodies. A staggering 7 to 11% of patients with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, also have an abdominal aortic aneurysm. Because of this link, assessing a patient's lung function is absolutely essential before an EVAR procedure.
The kidneys are also put under the microscope, and for good reason. During EVAR, doctors inject this special iodine-based dye so they can see the arteries on an X-ray. But this dye can be pretty harsh on the kidneys, potentially causing something called contrast-induced nephropathy, or CIN.
So why is this such a big deal? Well, for a patient whose kidneys are already impaired, that contrast dye, which is necessary for the procedure, could literally push their kidney function into a danger zone. It's a really serious risk that has to be carefully weighed.
Okay, so we've considered the patient, and let's assume they're a good candidate. Now we can move to the next part of our checklist. We have to turn our attention to the aneurysm itself. Is it actually big enough and dangerous enough to justify an intervention?
For many doctors, this is the magic number. Once an aneurysm in a man grows larger than 5.4 centimeters, it's about 5.0 centimeters in women, the yearly risk of it rupturing starts to become greater than the risks of the repair procedure itself. This is really the threshold where intervention is almost always recommended.
But what about those in-between sizes? This is where things get a little tricky. Major studies, like Caesar and Pivotal, they compared repairing them early versus just watching and waiting. What did they find? No clear survival advantage to operating early. But, and this is a big but, they also found that about 60% of those aneurysms just kept growing and ended up needing repair within 3 years anyway.
So, this brings us to the strategy of surveillance. As you can see, the monitoring gets way more intense as the aneurysm gets bigger. A smaller one might just get scanned every 3 years, but once it starts getting close to that 5-centimeter mark, the checkups become much more frequent, sometimes every 3 to 6 months.
So, the patient is fit, the aneurysm is the right size, we're clear for takeoff, right? Well, not quite yet. Now comes the final, and maybe the most technical part of the checklist: the patient's specific anatomy. The big question is, will the stent graft actually fit?
Success often comes down to one very specific area, the proximal aortic neck. This is the section of healthy aorta right below the arteries that go to the kidneys. It's the critical landing zone where the top of the graft has to anchor to create a perfect, secure seal.
For a standard EVAR, surgeons are looking for some very specific geometry. They need at least 15 millimeters of straight neck length to get a good seal. The angle of that neck can't be too sharp. Ideally, we're talking less than 60 degrees. And the diameters of the aorta and the iliac arteries, they have to be within a specific range to match the devices that are available.
This quote really says it all. More than any other single factor, simply not having enough of that healthy aortic neck to work with is what disqualifies so many patients from being candidates for a standard EVAR procedure. And the difference can be pretty stark. On the left, you see an example of ideal anatomy, a nice, long, straight landing zone. But then on the right, it's a completely different story. The neck is short, the angle is severe. That represents a much more complex challenge, one that might require a more advanced type of repair.
So after checking off the patient's health, the aneurysm size, and the aorta's anatomy, we finally arrive at the last step. It all comes down to a single calculated decision, a very delicate balancing act of risk.
As you can see, the final call isn't based on just one thing. It's a synthesis of everything we've talked about. The size of the aneurysm and the patient's overall health, they carry the most weight, but anatomy is right there behind them. And really importantly, the patient's life expectancy and their own personal preference are essential parts of that final equation.
And that is the crucial takeaway here. There is no simple flowchart. The decision to repair an abdominal aortic aneurysm is a highly personalized judgment call, made by the doctor and the patient together, carefully weighing the danger of the aneurysm against the risks of the intervention for that one unique person.
This leaves us with a fascinating thought. Today, we need a nearly perfect candidate for a standard EVR. But with newer, more advanced devices and techniques, surgeons can now tackle more complex anatomies than they ever could before. It really makes you wonder, will technology one day advance so far that the perfect candidate simply becomes everyone?